What's happening, everybody? It's your boys, Ram, Dean, and Black here at Playdead in downtown Toronto. Mark making the magic happen behind the scenes. Of course, the fight that is on everybody's mind is this boxing match between the two-division UFC champion Conor McGregor and one of the greatest of all time in Floyd Mayweather. People are looking at, over the last week or so, there was talks of the sparring session that Conor McGregor had with Paulie Malignaggi. Everybody was asking to see some of the videos. Dana White released the video because apparently Paulie Malignaggi was on the canvas, Conor's camp. The UFC's team says that he was hit and he fell. Malignaggi said that he was pushed. So Dana White released this little snippet of this video. And when I look at the video, it looks like a tip-top Conor McGregor in phenomenal shape, landing a bunch of punches. Malignaggi looks like he may have had his head scrambled, his feet were close together, and he fell. To me, it looked clean to me. It looked clean in the sense I had that little snippet. And based on my judgment, if I'm looking at a fight, this guy hit this guy and this other guy fell down.
So this isn't actually a fight.
Right.
And it doesn't actually, we brought our ref in. The whole thing is actually so weird when you really think about it. And then we're going to literally, all this is doing, one, we are selling this fight.
We're selling it.
Wow. And two, we are invested, heavily invested.
The world is.
The world is. Yeah, we're analyzing whether or not a thing. The one undeniable feature is Paulie Malignaggi, and I was on the phone right over here. We've got friends on Periscope, and I was chatting with some of them, and I said, go and take your little sister and just push her down. Please, actually, don't do that. And if you do it, don't say I told you to do it. I said to Ramdeen, how old's your youngest daughter, Ramdeen? He said, 9 years old. Shove her down. Go shove. You're not going to do that.
I do rough around. You know what?
Yeah.
I probably will shove her
Okay,
down.
good. You know what they'll do? None of those people will fall like this.
Yeah.
None of them. Not one.
Yeah.
No athlete, no 9-year-old. Humans don't fall that way. They don't. Humans fall like that way when they're dinged. And whether that last moment before falling like that, clearly showing the loss of balance and loss of coordination due to being struck in the head, whether that took place in that moment there, or the guy was so dinged in that moment, and while trying to do that, your hand pushed him down, who gives a rat's ass?
That's it.
What we looked at was a few seconds in 24 rounds?
Exactly. Such a small snippet of time.
But man, we must be deeply invested in this to be looking at it this deep, you know?
Well, again, it's the Conor supporters, and I'm clearly one of those. To me, it's still so ridiculous and ludicrous that, it's just like my daughter and I went to see a concert, and we were watching track and field, and Usain Bolt was racing. Wow. And we recognize, who is Usain Bolt? He is what?
The fastest man in the world.
Right, so he is the fastest man in the world at 60 to 100 meters, right?
Yeah.
But what happens if he has to run 40 miles?
Right.
Is he going to beat one of the Kenyan guys?
No.
Exactly. They're going to beat him to that. So yes, it's both running, and he's the fastest in that. But they're two different things. Just like, yes, fighting is fighting, but boxing, there's a specific set of rules, mixed martial arts, and then free fighting, it's like, well, actually, if there weren't rules, this is what we would do. So I think the people, when they look at this fight, and they've seen what Conor's been able to do. Nobody's ever won two championships at the same time. He's talked such a game that he's convinced all of his fans that he can now, because he has a fighting background, that he can come into this realm of professional boxing. And yes, it's fighting, but the science is, there's so many little details and nuances that's where the purists of boxing is like, this guy has never fought professionally. This doesn't make any sense.
So there's a lot of things to unpack there, and they're the things we're talking about all in the weeks leading up to it, to now, and in the weeks going forward. But it's a fascinating kind of moment to look at this, because what we're sort of debating is, let's start even further back. Sorry, language. So when we say This is boxing. This
Yeah.
has been one of the very roots of something that I know we can't have this conversation with 100 people because we all have a different understanding of what boxing is.
Sure.
What boxing is, there is boxing, the collection of rules and structures, the ring, the gloves, all of that. And then there's boxing, the belief system. Right? Boxing, the belief system. The elbow must be this way. We must do this like this. When this happens, we do. That's a belief system.
The art of the fighting element of boxing.
Yeah. That is a collection of beliefs, many proven through
100 some odd years.
100 some odd years, millions of trials and errors. That thing Conor doesn't have to do. He has to do so, and there are many things that this word represents, unfortunately. When we talk to an Inuit in the Northwest Territories of Canada, the reason they have 30 words to describe snow is because when we say, hey, look, it's snow, they'd be like, well, that didn't tell me anything. Is it the hard kind, the soft kind, the yellow kind? I can't eat that stuff. It's mandatory for their understanding, but we just have this one word, boxing, and it means these are the things you must do in this type of fighting. What it doesn't mean is you have to fight this way. And so people will be like, dude, it's boxing. He doesn't box. He can't fight this guy. He doesn't need to do. You're using the word boxing to describe this style of fighting, not this style of rules and structure that he has to exist in. And that's where it changes. He doesn't need to box this man. He fights this man under this particular set of rules.
Now, my question is, I totally hear what you're saying. Now, the first thing that you described is basically the rules and regulations of boxing, the gloves, the commission, the rounds, the shoes, all of the details of boxing. Then you explained the art and the science of boxing itself. That when you look at some of the greats, they all possess this specific abilities. Now Conor is closer to that, where he has mastered the art of his own level of fighting. Now he has to adhere to the rules of boxing. How does that change his approach? Because Floyd has his specific way of fighting, and he's used to adhering to these rules and regulations.
But the rules, the structure...
Will that limit Conor?
Yeah, he can only do these certain things now, but he doesn't have to do them the way that they've done them. And so the whole institution, so you know Russ Amber?
Of course.
So I'm working with Russ Amber all week long down in Vegas. And we had our first, and of course, he's a boxing purist, a boxing historian. If you don't know who he is, awesome guy, cut man, corner man.
He was in the corner of Lomachenko last week or the week before?
Knowledge historian, all of it. And the team at TSN is like, well, let's send them down to Vegas together. Robin, what's going on? And I'm like, this guy is disrupting this. He's thinking this way. The institution of boxing is flawed for these reasons. And Russ, what do you think? And he's like, this guy can't even box. And they're like, perfect. Let's just put you guys together the whole time. And it's great. And he's a very smart and respectful guy. We're going to have a lot of fun. But he watched Conor McGregor's open workout. And then they brought him in on TSN, and he said, it was ridiculous. It's some of the worst boxing I've ever seen. I mean, they didn't even tie the gloves right. They didn't understand the towels used to wipe the guy down. They were wiping up the floor with it. It's like, these guys don't know anything about boxing. And I'm like, that is exactly the point.
Yeah, they're not making it about that.
Look at the way this guy wears his shorts. You know what boxing isn't? How you wear your fucking shorts. You know what boxing isn't? How you tie the gloves. You know what boxing isn't? How the tradition with which you use the towels. And so those are evident to us. You look at that and go, well, of course they're not. It's also not the way you throw a left hook. That's not boxing. Boxing is the outline of what must be done within it. How you throw a straight right hand, or where you step, or how you pivot, these are not rules. These are things that were developed. Yes, they were developed because they worked. I'm trying to find as many different ways to illustrate this as possible. But neither one of us know much about basketball. But somebody who does can explain very easy to me who this Steph Curry guy is and what he did.
Right.
Why is he so good? Everybody said you can never hit free throws from that, or 3-point shots from there. Why not? Because they're low percentage. So don't throw those, shoot those baskets from that spot. They're low percentage. Don't do it.
Based on the league.
Yes, based on always. It's just a fact. The left hook lands this way, and the straight right is done with this foot here, and you don't throw 3-pointers from that spot. And what did that guy do? Went, why don't you? Well, that's just the rule. Why is it the rule? Because you don't hit them very well. Why don't you hit them very well? Oh, they're just low percentage. Well, what if I invested 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 hours in hitting them from there so that I can make it high percentage? Now, every bit of the planning of how they express basketball on a court, from the coach down to all the players and every strategy, revolves around the fact that nobody ever throws from there. They never throw those. So nobody defends them. Nobody's concerned with it. Your position over there is a non-threatening position. Only now, all of a sudden, this motherfucker is hitting three-pointers like crazy. That's one simple illustration. Why didn't it happen? Because basketball. What do you mean? But it's basketball. You don't throw high-level basketball. You don't throw three-pointers from there. High-level boxing, you don't lean forward on your right foot with your left almost off the ground, reaching in from 2 steps out. Why not? Which is what he hit Paulie with. Why not? Because if this is him,
you could counter.
This is where we fight in close. This is the pocket, and this is the what they call the tight circle in boxing. That's where my knuckle can touch your chin. This thing they call 2 steps out. It's sort of a dismissive range, and nobody ever fucking throws a straight left hand. Not nobody, that's hyper generalized, but it's very uncommon and bad strategy, like that 3-point shot, to throw that right hand from out there. Why? Because Floyd will see it coming. What if you got so good at it that he can't see it coming? It's just it's the same thing. He's going to look, all of these rules of the structure of what people think boxing is, all the stuff that my friend Russ was like, yeah, this is bad, and that looks bad, look how awkward that is. These are not flaws. These are things that are going to be the way to beat the guy. Everyone says you have to throw the left hook this way. You must do this. Never do this. All of those alwayses and nevers are all going to be the areas that you do it different.
What's so interesting about that is I wanted to talk about the comparison, because I think most people, if you are a fight fanatic, if you are a martial artist, I think you recognize boxing as an incredible martial art, right?
Yeah.
But it feels like boxing doesn't consider itself that.
Very much.
And where you look at a lot of martial artists, they love boxing. They love the art of boxing. And
totally. It's beautiful.
But there's, like you said, there's a set of rules. There's a way of doing things specifically in boxing. But martial arts, I've had a lot of martial arts instructors, and they all say the same thing. Use the technique that works.
Right.
If you have to amend it, then amend it. If your hook needs to be tilted, or if your jab needs to be an up jab, guess what? Use that tool. And is that the approach you think that Conor will have?
Very much so. And it's like the reason I was chatting with Zach Makovsky, who I like very much, and he's a very smart guy. And I was using this analogy. McGregor's not trying to make a better guitar. He's trying to make something better than a guitar. And I said that the issue is over-specialization or hyper-specialization breeds weakness. And that's a line from that anime show with Scarlett Johansson.
Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell. But it's true. If you are so specialized that you only do a certain thing, it breeds a type of weakness. We know what it is you do, and we know why it is you do it. And so there are guidelines and there are principles. And Bruce Lee, we can take, and it was funny that Conor said this is Bruce Lee shit, which is what he said, because this is all Bruce Lee shit.
It is. His gym is called the Straight Blast Gym. That's like from day one. This is our philosophy.
And this is how you beat, if you can beat Floyd Mayweather, you beat him this way.
With Bruce Lee.
You beat him with Bruce Lee shit. Learn the principles, abide the principles, and then dissolve the principles. So you understand what it is, you do it for a while to learn it enough, and then you break the rules.
So when you're deconstructing, if you're Conor's camp, you're looking at Floyd, what are his best attributes?
Floyd?
Yeah.
Floyd's best.
If you're the straight blast guys, if you're Kavanaugh, it's like, okay, we look at Floyd, tape on Floyd. These are his best weapons, his best movements. We intercept those.
Yes, and we also actually figure out what they really are.
What they really are.
So our imagination is brutally limited by language, right? Language limits our imagination. And so people are like, well, Floyd is really fast. Okay. what does that mean?
Well, some people would say, that's something you can actually measure.
Yeah.
If hand speed or whatever, do you not think that...
Yes.
Okay.
But is hand speed really the thing that makes him great if he goes to throw and I move away?
Yeah.
It's not that he's fast.
But now
he is fast.
He is fast.
But that's not what it is. Then it's like the next one they'll be with our limited language, which then I was reading something recently. It's like we want to understand something, but sometimes all we do is know the word. And it's not the same thing. So it's like someone's like, well, Floyd's elusive. Okay, well, what does that really mean? What does it mean? Okay, well, he gets away, he makes you miss. Okay, what does that mean? This is how you dig deep, is you keep asking. And your daughters did it as they grew up. Dad, where are we going? The store. Why?
Yeah.
Because we're going to get milk. Why?
Yeah.
Because we don't have any milk. Why? Well, we ran out of milk.
And you drank it all. What do you mean?
Exactly. That childlike questioning is what we're missing that hard in our culture, as we say, that's a knockdown, bro. No, it isn't. It's a push down, bro. And we don't ask why. What does it mean? What can we really learn from those things? We just, you're anti-abortion and I'm pro-choice, and we just fight about it forever. We never ask the questions. We never dig deeper. We never do it. Not never. I'm sorry. That's a gross generalization, but it's something that we've started to do as a culture. And when you look and you say, why is Floyd really that good? He's fast. That's not enough. He's elusive. That's not enough. He's a great counterpuncher. That's not enough. What does that mean? What it means really is Floyd has a highly, highly specialized and advanced and developed central nervous system that when he sees something coming in, his brain identifies it, runs it through a lifetime of information with predictive nature of what it will mean through an algorithm or a series of
advanced
algorithms
processor.
in his head.
That's all it is.
Exactly. And then when he sees it, his body goes
Reacts.
back, and after thousands of hours, it reacts in a way. That's his central nervous system. And that's what you have to beat. You don't beat his jab, or you don't, and every single time, it's going to be about distance, it'll be about range management, it'll be, he's got to make sure he throws that left. And Russ, and I'm not criticizing Russ at all, he's thinking the way that they think. He said, one thing Conor did well is threw that wide left hand. That's really good for a southpaw against an orthodox. No, it isn't. It once was. If you know it and I know it, Floyd knows it, and there's an answer, and he sets a trap with it. It's an advanced central nervous system. It's an advanced ability to process.
What about ego and arrogance? Because that's one thing that's very, very high in this game. And does Floyd and his team, they look at something like that, and do they recognize it as a threat, or do they say, that fucking guy isn't going to come close to hitting me? The best boxers in the world haven't been able to do this. Now this O guy is going to be able to somehow do that? Or do they recognize that, okay, this is a real threat? It seems that he would recognize this. Let's just make sure we are covered.
I don't know the answer to that, because it's 3 months ago, you would talk to people, and I'm going to arbitrarily make a number. 40% of them will say he won't hit Floyd once. He could never hit. And many of them. I was talking to Joe Valtellini. We did something at TSN the other day. Joe's a fucking genius.
Love Joe.
He's a genius. And on one hand, he's like, I've seen so many, even good kickboxers train with top boxers, and they can't touch him. But then later, when I talked about it, I said, you're fighting Floyd Mayweather. He goes, I believe I can win. I believe I can win. And that, once he put himself in there, and I said, now that you believe you can win, what do? I start figuring out how to win. Yeah. And right away, Joe, the champion, change. Joe, this unstoppable, hyper-confident champion, started thinking about it a different way.
What an ugly-looking guy that Valtteri.
Joe, yeah. It's just gruesome. He's a gruesome fella. Not handsome as shit, actually. Good dude, too. Good Brilliant guy. Yeah. And once it was in his mind, it was like, wait a second, yeah. And then he started thinking about it, and he's like, yeah, I would know that I can beat him. Right, well, that's where we start. And once you know you can beat him, are you going to just tell yourself it's going to be my night, or are you going to really dig? Are you going to really analyze? Are you going to really do that Bruce Lee shit? Because that's where Conor McGregor's thinking is. He's not trying to figure out how to beat Floyd's drop back right hand, or Floyd's, and when we discuss it, and these have been the limitations that have been dragging at me and making me figure out what is my job, like what am I trying to do here? And what I'm hopefully trying to do is take to the point where, well, he can't. He's too good a counterpuncher. That's not really a thing.
What happens?
That's just something we say on TV.
Sure. What happens though if Conor, the fight starts, Conor starts doing his thing, and then Floyd starts displaying the genius? You talk about the speed. Floyd will throw a punch. If his punch is off the mark, he just makes the adjustments with his feet. He doesn't even have to think about things.
No, it's natural.
He makes all these adjustments in the ring. At what point does Conor start drowning?
Yeah.
And what happens if that indeed, it's like, oh shit, I thought I'd be able to have a bunch of hacks to beat this guy. We're just playing a game that I just have no experience with.
For sure. And that can absolutely happen. He can find himself in round 3 and it's like, shit.
Holy shit.
But that a guy at this level can't touch a high level guy. We saw him drill Paulie with the left hand. Mm-hmm. So anybody that was like, he won't touch him once, I don't hear many of them. I don't hear them saying that now. That's changed already.
Right.
We've already gone from he cannot touch him whatsoever to, wait a second, okay, he'll probably, he hit Paulie. But then again, Paulie's out of shape, he's old.
There's the argument.
Like, you can start making the argument. The truth is, what I'm interested in is what he's trying to do. And I'm watching how he's trying to do. I know what he's doing. I know how he's looking at it. I know why he believes he can win. And I know the way that he's approaching it. Does that mean he'll win? No.
Of course not.
Does it mean he might win? Yeah. Does it mean he might fucking drop him or hurt him? Or we see this insane fight and all these, and Floyd ends up maybe winning, but all these people just can't believe, how did he, he will be devastated if he loses.
Floyd.
Conor. If
Yeah.
Conor loses a 12-round decision and wins 4 rounds somehow and drops Floyd once and has a great night, everybody will say it's a win for McGregor. McGregor would be devastated.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But those people would still be trying to figure out how that happened.
He would be
and
devastated.
I know how that would happen because we're seeing it happening.
He would be devastated, but they're intelligent. He's intelligent. His team's like, look, we wanted this fight. We tested ourselves. And as he said before, if we're not winning, we're learning. That's what it comes down to. If you're Floyd, how are you approaching this fight? Are you meat and potatoes? We're going to do things exactly the same way we've always done things, with the idea that when we fought the greatest fighters in the world,
some of whom were very unpredictable in their own right.
In their own right. Yeah. They were also masters of boxing. People say, well, Floyd doesn't hurt anybody. He dodges. No, he's facing other masters of boxing. Yeah. So this is what he's had to do. Do you believe he will employ that same strategy? Or, because one of the things I've been hearing is because of the money this fight is generating for Mayweather, that the victory is less important and that the entertainment for the fans, because all eyes are on this sporting event and people don't want to be soured on a thing that you're paying almost $50 more than a regular pay-per-view.
$100.
You know what I mean? So an insane amount of money. You have parties are being built around this thing. And then if it's on the 27th, it's like, that fight sucked.
And then Mayweather be like, I did it again.
You're right.
I did it again. He doesn't.
Yes,
I think he's lying.
Yeah.
Because there's many reasons to lie. Excuse me, including to benefit yourself. If I'm Floyd, I'm doing what I've always done. And it's like, even if you buy into weirdos who are talking about disruption and, approaching things differently and finding the holes in boxing, because truthfully, if we keep training with certain beliefs, we're training with the belief that this is a wrong choice. I'm not using an exact example. We never do X against a counterpuncher. Yeah. Well, if very young as fighters and coaches, they believe that to be true, it hasn't been retested in decades. It hasn't been re-pushed. These rules, they're not rules. There are no rules in the art of combat. There's rules in the sport of combat, and those must be adhered to. But there's no rules in there.
Everything's pliable.
Yeah, everything is malleable. It's all, always throw the jab this way. Never move your head this way. Those false beliefs are the 3-point shot for Steph Curry. Every single one of them. And some people still believe some of them. There are still people who think you have to have your foot on the outside to get Southpaw versus Orthodox. If you believe that, and the other guy knows that's not true, he's going to murder you.
I remember you were telling me about this, I don't know if it was a documentary, but the swimming. And over time, this one swimmer pushed and beat the record of old by like such a large margin. Can that happen now? Like, okay, boxing has a history of 100 and some odd years. Everybody's been doing things to a certain point. Now, can that change, or is all of that history of boxing, they've been going through the experiment of boxing to where we are now?
But you're always missing some information. The one obvious one, and it's from the few seconds we saw of Conor against the boxer, is out in the kicking range. And I don't like calling it kicking range because it's not kicking range. Again, this is where we're fighting each other. Range 1, we're tied up. Range 2, it's in the pocket. Range 3 is on the end of this. And range 4 is a combat range outside of that. Conor McGregor, that's a hot range in MMA and kickboxing. It's a hot range. So we develop a sensitivity to that range, to the threats in that range, and to my ability to trick you and land something in there. It's a highly developed range that doesn't barely exist in boxing. They call it 2 steps out. It's 1 step away from something. But in fighting, it is something. And Conor, Tony Ferguson, many others. The reason I don't like to call it kicking range is because merely by extending my torso, I punch from there. So we call it range 4. My feet are in range 4, but my torso is in range 3 and I land on you. Now, in boxing, Conor lands that punch on Paulie and will look to land it on Floyd, and has landed it on every opponent he's ever faced, because he is sensitive to your sensitivity in that distance, and he can move, and he breaks all kinds of rules. Never extend heavily and put all your weight over your front foot. And I've seen people who call themselves analysts, and they're like going, you don't realize all the flaws Conor has. Like, for example, he extends himself and stretches too far over his foot. That is not a flaw.
Yeah.
That is a variation.
If he's in balance, he can do that.
And I saw someone on Twitter list all these 12 reasons that Conor has no chance. And it's like, all of them were not flaws. They were variations, highly developed variations. Conor, heavy over that front leg with his left foot barely on the ground at all, has knocked people unconscious with that from day one. And you look at that and call that a flaw? It's a variation. It's a variation that some call flaws in month 1 of training boxing, and since we believe it from day 1, from the time we're 6 until the time we're 40, in our mind it's a flaw, and because it's a flaw, our training partners never do it. And there's Conor McGregor able to land from range 4 by moving his torso, which is wrong, leaning heavily over the front foot, which is wrong, taking his left foot off the ground, which is wrong, and still smashing a former 2-time champion in the face by making all of these wrong choices. They're not wrong. They're variations. And we made the belief that they were wrong, even though we know there are no rules in the art of fighting.
But as you know, in an argument scenario, especially for supporters of Mayweather, that if Conor was to do that in the fight, and he's to get countered by Mayweather and hurt and dropped, they would say, see, that's a flaw. If he didn't overextend, if he wasn't heavy on his lead leg, and he was light and he was back, he would have avoided getting countered.
You want to play rock, paper, scissors?
Okay.
Ready?
All right.
Okay, so you got it.
Yeah.
Was this a flaw?
Yeah, I know.
Was this a flaw?
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
It's not a flaw.
It's not a flaw. It's a choice.
That's a choice.
It's a choice. And the result, if you are so inclined, you'll literally just go, see, it's a flaw. That he won. Floyd won. Floyd beat Conor, therefore that's a flaw. It's just a choice. It's just a variation. Conor fights with variations that people believed were untrue. And in fact, a lot of what they're, and these aren't all new, and that's the other thing with disruption. Somebody's going to create a disruption suddenly by bringing back a steam engine or something. Like, some of these things are things from a long time ago. Bruce Lee concepts from the 70s are at play in this fight.
Yeah.
Old, this kind of boxing. Nate Diaz and Nick Diaz, some of their game is brought in from old concepts like that, and they were disruptors at first. When they came into fight, Nick and Nate Diaz made free fighting, MMA, which is at that time was an anaerobically expressed sport. They made it an aerobic sport for one, because they were like,
we're going for a long time.
Exactly, they're triathletes,
yeah.
So they made it about that, and then they made it. They were heavy in there, and pop, pop, pop. They didn't throw them heavy. Yeah. And here's where language.
Say they didn't have any power.
Exactly. And they beat the shit out of everybody. And then it takes a while because people deny it. They deny it. They're denying it now. They're like, they'll deny that that's right until they get to the point that one of two options happen. Okay, we'll do it too, which is many people's reaction. As soon as we saw the little guy in the pajamas submit everybody in UFC 1, everybody's like, the secret to fighting is jiu-jitsu. Until later, some people come along and they go, the secret to fighting is beating jiu-jitsu. Not being jiu-jitsu, it's beating jiu-jitsu. And the secret to the Diaz brothers isn't, which is where the flaws come in of our language. We'll go, they're volume punchers. Well, I guess I need to be a bigger volume puncher. No, kick his fucking leg. And the answer to Conor McGregor in this situation is kick that leg. Only thing is, in this rule set, you can't kick that leg. And all of those things now, that's one example. And their team has 8. And as they start doing it, they're developing 8 more and 8 more and 8 more. And is it possible? So all of that is the right strategy. And it may not work at all, and Floyd may be untouchable, but it's the right strategy. It's the only strategy. It's the only way to do it. And watching him do it, and watching them try to do it, and watching it come together is, to me, one of the greatest experiences of watching sport that you could ever have, even if he fails completely. Watching it is fucking cool.
I can't wait. August 26th can't come fast enough. What will be the conversation on August 27th after Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor do battle in Las Vegas?